My name is Melissa. I am an ESL teacher on ESL Teacher, and I wanted to discuss using eye contact when teaching in an ESL classroom. Now, the first point, I'll start with a story. Today at our school, one of the volunteers in training to be a teacher, he was having students practice certain questions with answers. How are you? I'm fine. Do you bow when? Just questions about greetings. Anyway, he had them listen to the questions and write them, and then he wrote them on the board. He had them practice in pairs speaking them, and then this was the final review of the questions. So at this point, he was supposed to have the students close their books. They don't look at their books, and they're supposed to say the questions from their head. Now, to help them out, he said it first, and then they would repeat after him, but they would not be reading the questions. And that was the key to the exercise, that they're not reading. Now, what he was doing was he was actually reading. He was reading it, and he wasn't even looking at the students when they said the question after him. So if he said, "How are you?" and they said, "How are you?" he didn't even look up to see if they were looking. Now, I'm not picking on you, my volunteer, nameless volunteer. I'm using you as an example to help throw a point home. Basically, you have to look at your students, especially when you want them to look at you in a practice where they're not supposed to be reading. If your students are supposed to be reading and they're supposed to memorize something, you should also be doing the same thing as them. So don't read. You can look at it, look up, and then read it, and then watch your students as they say it to make sure that they're doing okay, to see if anyone's having problems, to see if they're actually reading or if they're actually saying it without reading. So that was interesting for me to see him do that. So it's important in a classroom to keep eye contact with your students as much as possible. But especially in an activity when you want your students to look at you and say sentences instead of reading them, you need to look at them and they need to look at you. Alright? And the other point I wanted to make was you can use eye contact a lot when you do conversations, practice dialogues for students in an ESL class when they're talking to each other and you give them a dialogue to practice. What you do after you give them the dialogue to practice, maybe once or twice to get used to saying the words, and of course they're all reading it to each other. After that, you tell them, okay, we're going to switch your partner. Alright, switch your partner. Now, when you do this practice, don't read. Look at your partner. Alright, and if they go, oh my god, I can't remember, you say, look at it, then look up, and then say it to your partner. Alright, so if the sentence is, how are you, they don't have to read how are you. They can lift up, look at their partner, and say, how are you, right? So that's the point. So you can make eye contact very important as a tool to get students away from the crutch of reading English all the time, because you want them to be able to use it. And you can always tell your students, I make you do that because are you going to go out and be like, how are you, my name is, and they all laugh when you do something like that because they realize the importance of it. When they speak English, they're not going to be reading. They're going to be speaking to people and looking at them in the eye. Unless, of course, it's a different culture. I know some Micronesian cultures, they don't look at each other directly in the eye. And if you have those considerations, you can work around it. But in any case, you don't want them to be reading. Alright? So you can use eye contact when you look at your students and you do exercises with them. Be sure you look at them as much as possible. Look at all your students. Make sure they're looking at you. Okay? Make sure they're looking at you too. Alright? This keeps the class together also. Keeps them focused. Keeps you focused on the class so you know what's going on. And then when students practice speaking to each other, have them practice looking at each other when they're talking. Alright? I hope this is helpful. Eye contact is so important. I'm sure I have so many points that I don't know how to tell you right now because I do them maybe instinctively and don't realize it. But if you have any ideas, comments, hints, tips, extra advice on eye contact, please leave it in the comment section of this post. Thank you so much for visiting today. Bye-bye.